Hello, everyone. It is another episode of Masks Off, and I'm Tia.
And I'm Kim.
And we are really excited to have another conversation. And today's conversation is going to be around what the quote is. So the quote is from Bernard Meltzer. When you forgive, you in no way change the past, but you sure do change the future. And the reason we're having this conversation today is Kim just went through her I am whole process that we developed together. So she went through the process herself, which is why, we're not going to share stuff that we don't work with. So real quick, for those of you who aren't aware of the I am whole process, it's an 8-step process that Kim and I developed, and we're teaching and supporting people to learn how to use it. So that was just a quick side note. If you haven't heard that out of our mouths before, this is the first episode you're listening to. And so Kim used the I am whole process in a situation that relates to the quote we just shared. So Kim, why don't you share what happened, how you worked through it yourself, and then of course, how it all tied together at the end and what happened.
So first of all, I want to say that I do use the I am whole process over and over and over again. Every time that I feel overcome with emotion, anytime that I'm reactive, anytime that I just feel stuck, and I know it's just a catchphrase, but it honestly does describe what I feel anytime that I'm triggered. So I had a situation recently with my daughter where she had called me up and she wasn't 100% serious. So first of all, I am taking my mask off on this and I am exposing myself. So 100% being real, being vulnerable, and sharing where I quote unquote messed up. But every mess up, every mistake is an opportunity for growth. And that's what happened and what I'll explain. So she called me up. She was just in her own little space of emotional upheaval, and said to me, half serious, half not, "Hey mom, can I borrow $5,000? And I said, okay, what do you need $5,000 for? Honestly, the first thing that I was thinking, like my first thought went to, well, did she, get into some kind of real big financial problem? Is she like in debt? Did something like that happen?
Yeah.
And then she just said, no, so I don't have to work anymore, because she's been working a part-time job, going to college full-time, and rightly so, feeling tired, feeling overwhelmed and out of balance. It's a lot when you're a college student and trying to work 25 hours a week. So she was just in a place of venting, but it activated me when she said that, because I know that she received not long ago a good amount of money from her grandmother. And I personally, because I'm different with money, I would probably, not have spent any of it, or very little, like saved all of it. That's just how I am with money. It's not how she is with money. She spent a lot of it, and it was a gift. So it was her right to do what she wanted with that money.
Right.
But I was coming from the mindset of, well, if she was more cautious, saved some of it, didn't blow through it, she wouldn't have to have this job. And she could just be 19, be in college, just enjoy herself.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that was my perspective on the situation. And it's come up a lot of times before. I've made I've told her straightforward, but I've also made comments, little digs and comments in the past. And in this particular situation that I'm sharing right now, I did make the comment of, okay, here's my mask coming off. I did say,
take a breath.
Take a breath, because I'm exposing myself. I did say, I don't want to say that I told you so, but I told you so. Like I told you that you shouldn't have
Yeah.
blown through that money because then you wouldn't be in this position. Well, she's well aware of her actions. She's well aware of the struggle that she's having with the money.
Right.
She doesn't need to hear from me that comment. It was a shaming comment. It was shaming. It's like, I told you so, and I know better, and you should have listened to me because you don't know well enough. Really is the energy
And
behind
it's already
saying,
happened.
and it already happened. So you can't change it
change it.
anyway.
Right.
Can't change it. And from my old pattern and my old way of being, somehow I felt like by saying that I would be able to control and prevent her from doing it more in the future. But I can't control her. I cannot control people, places, and things. So that was me being in fear and anxiety and wanting to control the situation. So you can see the workings of our process, right? The I am whole,
Totally. Yeah.
the going inward, and I'm, looking at my patterns. I'm aware of that I'm in the future and in the past and all over the place.
Right.
So, and naturally, when I said that, what do you think her reaction was? And gotta love it. Gotta love her for being able to like, okay, like, how's that helpful, Mom?
Called you out.
Called me out. How is that helpful? That doesn't help me in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And I'm so grateful that I'm able to hear that rather than reacting more to her firing back at me and then getting into a go around and going down that rabbit hole even more. I'm thankful that I was able to stop and pause right there.
Yeah. So you got M. So you brought in take a moment.
I took a moment.
React. Don't go into how dare you be. That's disrespectful or whatever words we like to call our kids when they challenge us.
Yeah, right? Kids or even other adults.
Right. And young, I mean.
Yeah, but in this particular
she's not a kid anymore. She is a young adult.
She's a young adult.
Right.
And that is something that I used to say before I was on this path of more conscious parenting and being able to stop and pause and go inward and look at my part in it and see. I used to say things like, how dare you, because then don't talk to me that way. I'm your mother. How dare you? So I'm thankful I was able to stop there.
Yeah.
I didn't say any more at that point because I was still in an emotional upheaval. I was still activated, but I knew enough not to keep going. Which
takes a lot of practice and shows how much work you have done over all these years.
Yes. So let's underscore that. Let's underscore it.
That you could stop that process of spiraling out of control and saying more that would have been harmful.
It was damage control, right? Without like creating more damage. I was able to stop there. But there was still some damage because I could tell by her whole demeanor how it was just, she became more subdued and shrunken in, like, okay, and withdrawing. She was withdrawing from me, like, so it was like, okay, quick, get off the phone. I got to go do this. Okay, fine. We'll talk later. So then I just went about my day, was busy. But then later on, after I had more time to come back to center, and I did the whole I am whole process and realized my part in it. And I took 100% responsibility. I took care of my own needs in it, recognized it was my fear, my anxiety. And then I called her back later on and I did a do-over. And I said to her, I said, I'm really sorry for what I said earlier. It was a shaming comment and I should not have shamed you. And I'm really sorry.
Wow.
And then I said, and, because we don't want to say the word but, because but just negates everything that I just said.
Exactly.
And then I said, and I would like to just explain where I'm coming from. And I even said, so I explained where I was coming from. I told her about being anxious, worried. And I also said, this is not to put this on you and say that you need to do anything differently to take care of my emotions.
Yeah.
It's not your job to take care of me. I said, it's my job to take care of my own emotions about it. And I'm working on it. And it's hard for me and it's a struggle. And
So
she
there
said,
you really, really went into that willingness to take responsibility.
yes.
The W.
The W for willingness. I took 100% responsibility for my part in it.
Yeah.
Is there still an issue with her spending? Perhaps there is, but that's not what this was about. This was about me taking 100% responsibility for how I showed up in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that does take a lot of energy and work too, because it's so extremely hard,
right,
to admit where we might be at fault, especially for people like myself who wear the perfection mask. You know, to be able to admit that I did some, was at fault or whatever for something. But I also have learned so much now that everything is an opportunity for growth. And I love that challenge. So that's what makes me more willing to take a look at my own stuff and to take responsibility for my part in things. But it was a lot of going through the I am whole process. I had to take care of my own emotional landscape. I had to self-regulate and all of that before I could come back and do that redo with her.
And what I love there's so many things that are so valuable in what you've just shared. She was receptive to receiving because you were in a space that you were truly owning, showing up, you were regulated. Because if you had done that too early, it would have just continued that cycle. So, really honoring and taking care of yourself, giving yourself compassion, like I screwed up, okay, but now I can choose to do something differently moving forward. And then recognizing it wasn't about, there's so many things, but just I'm pointing out just a couple things that are popping into my head. So again, her willingness to take your apology, because it was not an, hey, forgive me, I'm so sorry, blah, blah. It wasn't that groveling, like I'm supposed to apologize. It was a true, meaningful, I just want you, it wasn't even really, we say apology and I'm sorry, but so many times people don't take the responsibility of the I'm sorry. But because you took that ownership and really explained why and said, this is mine to take care of, not yours. And I loved how you talked about too, it's like, is she still going to have to figure out money situations or whatever? But that's a different situation.
Yes.
It was a trigger for something else within you. And so now if she wants that support financially, from how to navigate budgeting or whatever, coming at it from that space of how can I support you? How can I help you? Not by loaning you a chunk of change necessarily, but let's help. This is what you're bringing in. Maybe you need to cut back hours. What do you think you need? So you can then, you've now created the space for let's have a conversation. If you need support or you just want to vent, like you made it clear, you got activated. So now next time, if she just wants to vent to you, you can maybe see that little control, worry, trigger and find that moment even before you may think it, but like you were able to stop yourself from continuing into that spiral halfway through, maybe you'll stop it right away, and so the beauty of, and we say this time and time again in our podcast, in our courses with people, private sessions that you do, I do, this is a process and we're going to screw up. We're still human. It doesn't matter how long we've been doing this practice.
Yeah.
And for you to be vulnerable, take off your mask and share that this just happened recently, within the last week.
Yeah.
You're human. And so the more we can, bringing in more steps, offer and have that love and compassion for ourselves, then we can really learn, we can really transform and do that redo, that repair to the person we caused harm to in the process, because we weren't coming from our authentic self in that moment. And
I 100% agree. Thank you. Thank you. And what I want to say is I 100% agree that it doesn't mean that we won't continue to struggle and have those challenges.
Of course.
What I can say is where the growth shows and the healing shows, and the difference is that one major generational pattern that I have broken is that I don't push it under the rug. I don't sweep it under the rug. That would have happened. That did happen for me growing up. And I'm quite sure probably for my mom when she was a kid, my dad, you just didn't talk about it. You ignored it, swept it under the rug. You did the damage and just ignored it.
Right. Right.
I don't do that now. So if I need to do a repair or there's an issue, we're going to talk about it.
And a true repair.
And a true repair.
Right.
Yes.
There's
in
a
the way
difference.
that,
yes. Apology versus repair are not the same thing.
They're not the same thing. The repair is so much more. There's so much more involved.
Exactly.
And the other beauty is that while I still get triggered, get stuck, whatever it is, what I explained, how I was able to catch myself happens much quicker than it used. Well, it never would. I would never have been able to catch myself really like years ago prior to. I would have gone down that rabbit hole. I would be flooded with emotion, with all kinds of feelings, and just bury them. So forget about it. So you sweep it under the rug, number one, and then I push down and build these layers of sedimentation, like within myself, that one, I was in a perpetual state of feeling crappy because there's all this stuff in me. That now when it happens, it's more like we always talk about, here's our water analogy, and I've got the water in the background. Here's our water analogy. The difference is now that when I do get in those situations, get triggered, activated, and I work through it, then it's like the flowing river. The water starts to flow again. It might get caught a little bit behind a rock, but then it starts to flow again. Whereas in the past, it would end up being like a marsh where you have all that murky water where you can't see because you have all those layers of sedimentation. And it's just sucks you in. It's stale. It smells. If you ever walk by a marsh that's like, overgrown, or it stinks. Like, so that's how my inner landscape used to be. And now, so there's the difference with doing the work and where I am now. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to still get caught by that tree limb that's in the water or that rock or something's going to, right? It's so
great analogy.
There's the difference.
Cool. Wow.
Why we highly encourage you to be on the journey with us if you want and participate in I Am Whole if it helps, or just listening to our podcast. This is what we do, what we talk about, you and I, and how we can help others.
Right. And it's what we do and how we live. It's like embodied. The last
embodied.
It is. There's no other way for us to do this anymore. And that, again, just with your vulnerable share today, shows that it doesn't mean you get perfection. It doesn't mean you don't make mistakes, but those mistakes help us even more deeply accept and embody and move forward with another level, another layer. So when you get discouraged that I should have done better or I knew better, flip that script and be like, oh, it was just a reminder to help me continue my growth. That's all it is. And you can either choose to continue your growth, or you can shame yourself and beat yourself up. And, if you do that, notice you're doing it. And then again, let me step back in. What is the next conscious choice for me that's in alignment? And so such a beautiful example. Wow.
We didn't even think we had anything going today. So look at us.
I know we were so busy with other stuff, but we had to record this because it was just so brilliant. So
yes. Thank you so much for everyone listening, not just you, Tia, but all of our audience. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, if you liked what you heard today, we would love your support by subscribing or writing a
Tell a friend.
review, tell a friend, share our podcast, any way that feels good for you. We would love and appreciate that.
Yeah. And if you'd like to learn more about I Am Whole, there's information in the show notes too on how to join us.
We would love that.
Thanks, Kim.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.